Today I want to talk to you about faith. Faith is believing in the unseen, which is why a lot of atheists have a hard time believing in God, because they want proof. They want to be able to put God in a box and say, this is God. I have contained God in a definition, therefore he is real. But God does not work this way. Just like a character in a book cannot define the author of the story that it is in, we cannot define God, because he is our creator. Not only is he creating us, but he's creating the world, he's creating who we are. He's giving us a place in which we can exist and grow and become more like him. But even to say to become more like him is vague, because he cannot be defined. Yeah, we can say that he's love and wise and he has these attributes, but at the same time, he is beyond that. He cannot be understood with our physical mind. And if we can put our trust in something that is beyond this world, that is not only creating this world, but existing in it, we open up a doorway for wisdom that we cannot obtain in our physicality alone. God has the ability to see our life before we've lived it. He's seen every choice we could make and where it all leads. So if we trust that he has this wisdom and that we are God's seed, therefore he wants us to grow, he wants us to prosper, he wants us to go out and make the best choices for our growth, then that is the faith that we need in order to grow with God. God does not want us to take the burden of the world on our shoulders. He did not create us to figure everything out. There's a reason why in Genesis the knowledge of good and evil were in a tree, and he told us not to eat from it. Before we ate from the tree of good and evil, we didn't know what good and evil was. Because just like when we have a baby, we don't teach the baby what good and evil is, because we're more focused on raising the baby to the best of our ability. God was raising us, and he was making the choices of what good and evil were, and then leading us with his discernment through whatever needed to be led through. But when we ate from the tree of good and evil, we started coming up with our own ideas of what right and wrong were. We started embracing some things, resisting other things. And the problem with that is when we allow our feelings to dictate what right and wrong is, we can start believing that what right is really wrong and what wrong is really right. And then before you know it, we're living in sinful ways because of maybe a circumstance that was traumatic that now has led us to believe that our parents are no good, or the opposite sex is no good, so why should I get married? Or that people are no good, so why should I try to make friends? These are all traumas that we carry in one way or the other that solidifies knowledge, and this knowledge is not true knowledge. And this knowledge causes us to believe things that are not true. So we must become faithful in God and have the trust that He knows things that we cannot know. And not look at Him as this God on a pedestal, but more as our advisor, our counselor. Someone that wants to impart this knowledge, this wisdom onto us. And if there is worldly knowledge that goes against the things that God is telling us, that is our cue that we're holding on to trauma that is making us think that certain lies are true. And that is our cue to now use God's wisdom to transform our mind and start doing what God intended us to do, to start living in truth. Because, like it says in the Bible, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. It's the truth that God is sharing with us through His Word and through the Holy Spirit that will break the chains of all the sins, of all the misinterpretations that we carry in our flesh. We are three parts. We are spirit, soul, body. Our spirit is the purest form, if you even want to call it a form. It is the breath of life, the breath of God that God has put into our body. It is the closest that we can say we are to God. And that part of us is eternal. Then there's the soul, which is our desires, our thoughts, our memories. And then there's the flesh, our body, which is your need to eat, your need to procreate, your need to survive. And there's these three modalities that are running within you at all times. And a lot of us are stuck in our bodily desires or even our mental desires. And this is how we're being dictated in our life. And, sometimes, for example, if your body is hungry and it needs to eat, it might force you to do things that are not godly in order to get the food that you need to get. Whether it's steal or maybe even get caught stealing so you kill somebody so that you don't get in trouble. So that's just one example of how, depending on what we believe in or the situation we're in, we can accidentally be forced to sin. Now, if we learn to live in the Spirit is not tempted by our bodily desires or our mental desires. The only thing the Spirit cares about is to be like God. So if there is a walk, the walk is to learn how to override the body and the mind and become spiritual. God bless.